The cold morning air cut across Fort Carson like a blade. Commander Catherine Brennan stood in the parking lot of a nondescript safe house 3 miles off base, her civilian clothes feeling wrong after 8 years of living in uniform. The Honda Civic she'd driven from Coronado sat behind her dusty from 2 days of interstate driving. No military plates, no base stickers, nothing that would mark her as anything other than another face passing through Colorado. Inside the safe house, Admiral Frank Dalton waited. Kate pushed through the door. The interior smelled like stale coffee and old carpet. Dalton sat at a folding table, decades of military service etched into the lines of his face. He looked smaller than she remembered, thinner. The cane leaning against his chair was new. Kate, his voice still carried command despite retirement. Admiral, she crossed the room, shook his hand. His grip remained firm. Sit. She did. Dalton slid a manila folder across the table. No classification markings, no official seals, just a folder that technically didn't exist. Captain Derek Vance, Dalton said, 42 years old, commands the Elite Tactical Leadership Program at Fort Carson, 18 years of service, Bronze Star, 2 deployments. On paper, he's exactly what the Army wants in a training commander. Kate opened the folder. A service photo stared back. Vance had the look of a man who'd spent his career proving something. Square jaw, broad shoulders, eyes that held too much certainty. And off paper, she asked. 3 formal complaints in the last 14 months, all from female personnel, harassment, hostile work environment, gender-based discrimination. All 3 complaints were filed. All 3 were buried. Kate flipped through the documentation. The complaints were detailed, specific, the kind of specificity that came from people who'd been keeping records because they knew nobody would believe them otherwise. Why buried? Vance has friends, division level, people who think the military is getting too soft, too politically correct. They see complaints like this as noise. Dalton's jaw tightened. They're wrong. Kate studied the complaints. One woman had resigned rather than continue serving under Vance's command. Another had requested immediate transfer. The third was still at Fort Carson, still in the program, still documenting everything. What do you need from me? Dalton leaned forward. I need proof, not allegations, not he said, she said. I need documented, witnessed, undeniable proof that Derek Vance creates a toxic command environment, and I need him caught in the act. You want me to go undercover. I want you to apply to his program as a transfer candidate. Clean file, sealed records, no rank visible, no name tape, just another applicant he thinks he can dismiss. Dalton's eyes held hers. Show me how he treats someone he believes is vulnerable. Then show him who you really are. Kate closed the folder. She'd known this was coming. Dalton didn't call people to Colorado for social visits. Why me? Because you're the best operator I ever trained. Because you've got nothing to prove and everything to teach. And because Derek Vance failed SEAL selection twice when he was 25 years old. He spent 17 years bitter about it. You're what he couldn't become. I want to see how he reacts. The math was simple. Vance had tried for the SEALs, washed out, built a career around that failure. And now a woman who'd succeeded where he'd failed would walk into his world and let him show his true colors. When do I start? You're already late for your assessment briefing. Dalton stood slower than he used to. The cane took more weight than it should. Your uniform is in the bathroom, Lieutenant Brennan. No first name on the tape, no rank insignia except the bar. Your file is sealed with a provisional classification. As far as anyone at Fort Carson knows, you're a transfer applicant with an unremarkable service record. Kate stood. And when he shows himself, you document everything. You give me enough to bury him so deep he never commands troops again. Dalton's voice carried the weight of decades. I championed you through buds when half the command wanted to wash you out for being female. I staked my reputation on you being the best. You proved me right. Now I'm asking you to do it again. She met his eyes, saw the man who'd stood beside her when everyone else had seen only a woman trying to invade a brotherhood. He'd never made it easy, never lowered standards, never suggested she deserved special treatment. He just demanded she be better than everyone else and then watched her do exactly that. I'll get you what you need. I know you will. He extended his hand again. One more thing. The female officer still documenting Vance's behavior. Lieutenant Avery Sullivan, intelligence specialist. She's been trying to build a case for 6 months. She's brave, she's thorough, and she's terrified. If you can help her. Kate shook his hand. Understood. 20 minutes later, she stood in front of a mirror in ill-fitting army fatigues. The uniform felt wrong. Not her service, not her branch. The name tape read Brennan with nothing else. Single bar on the collar, no unit patch, no deployment indicators, nothing that would tell a story. She looked like a ghost. Good. Kate touched her left shoulder through the fabric. The trident tattoo sat there hidden. Eagle Anchor Trident Pistol. Below it, the words that mattered: Team 3, 8 years, 4 combat deployments. Operations she'd never discuss. Missions that existed only in classified files that nobody would ever read. All of it invisible under Army fatigues that weren't hers. She drove to Fort Carson alone. Passed through the gate with temporary credentials that identified her as a training assessment candidate. The MP barely glanced at her ID. Just another transfer. Just another body rotating through. The base sprawled across Colorado terrain like a small city. 20 square miles of buildings, training grounds, motor pools, and endless roads connecting everything to everything else. Kate drove slowly, observing. The place had the feel of a post that had been at war for 20 years. Tired, worn, functional but not polished. She parked outside the administrative building where her assessment briefing was scheduled. 0900 hours. She was 7 minutes early. The building was standard military construction. Concrete block painted beige, narrow windows, double doors with crash bars. A small sign indicated the elite tactical leadership program offices were on the second floor. Kate sat in her car and watched. Personnel moved in and out, mostly male. A few female soldiers, but they moved differently. Faster, eyes down. The body language of people trying not to be noticed. She'd seen it before. Bosnia, Iraq, Afghanistan. Anywhere women served in proximity to men who resented their presence. She checked her watch. 0858. Time. Kate stepped out of the Civic. The morning sun hit her face. Cold wind carried the smell of diesel and dust. Somewhere across the base, a formation was running. Cadence. The sound carried thin and distant across the open ground. She walked toward the building, each step measured, controlled. Her boots hit concrete with steady rhythm. She'd spent 8 years learning to move like water. Silent, efficient, deadly when required. But today wasn't about stealth. Today was about being visible. The doors opened under her hands. Inside the building smelled like floor wax and old coffee. A directory on the wall pointed toward stairs. She took them 2 at a time. Second floor. Hallway lined with office doors. Most were closed. One stood open at the end of the corridor. Voices inside. Male. Laughter that carried too much confidence. Kate walked toward the sound. The office was larger than standard. Someone had claimed extra space. 3 men stood inside, clearly waiting. They turned as she entered. Captain Derek Vance stood center. He matched his photo, tall maybe 6'2", broad through the shoulders in a way that suggested hours in the gym. His uniform was perfectly pressed. Boots shined to mirrors. Everything about him screamed someone who cared very much about appearance. To his left stood a younger man, late 20s, muscular in the way that came from focused training. His name tape read Webby, lieutenant bars on his collar. The third man was shorter, stockier, early 30s, sergeant stripes, name tape Harmon. He had the look of someone who'd made rank through time and grade rather than exceptional performance. All 3 were staring at her. Vance's eyes traveled from her boots to her face. Slow, deliberate, the kind of scan designed to make someone feel small. "You're the applicant." Disbelief dripped from every word. Kate stopped 3 paces inside the door. Feet shoulder width, hands behind her back. The position was automatic after years of standing countless briefs. "Yes, sir." Vance exchanged glances with Webb and Harmon. Something passed between them. Amusement, maybe. Contempt, definitely. "You don't look like much." Kate said nothing. The silence stretched. Let him fill it. "Your file says you're a transfer candidate for the elite tactical leadership program." Vance walked slowly around her, circling like a predator assessing prey. This program trains senior officers for advanced tactical unit command. It's physically demanding, mentally exhausting. Most candidates wash out in the first week. He stopped directly in front of her, close enough that she could smell his cologne. Too much of it. So I'm asking you again. You're the applicant. Yes, sir, Webb snorted. Harmon grinned. Did Daddy pull strings for you? Vance asked. Or did someone decide we needed to hit a diversity quota? The words hung in the air. Kate kept her face neutral. She'd heard worse. In Bud's, instructors had screamed things designed to break her. In combat zones, enemy fighters had shouted threats, while she put rounds center mass through their chests. Words were just sounds. They only had power if you gave it to them. Sir, I'm here to complete the assessment. Nothing more. Nothing more, Vance smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. You hear that, gentlemen? She's here to complete the assessment. How ambitious. Webb and Harmon laughed on cue. The sound felt rehearsed, like they'd played this scene before with other candidates who'd walked through that door. Let me tell you something, Lieutenant. Vance's voice dropped lower. This program isn't for people who check boxes. It's for warriors, leaders, people who've earned the right to command elite units in combat. Do you understand what that means? Yes, sir. I don't think you do. He turned away, walked toward his desk. Before we begin any assessment, I need to know if you can follow orders. Basic discipline, the foundation of military service. He turned back toward her. Take off your jacket. The words landed like a physical blow, not because of what he asked, because of what it represented. Kate didn't move. Sir, I said take off your jacket. Vance's voice carried more edge now. You want to be in this program? You don't get to wear that uniform until you prove you're worth it. So take it off now. The room went quiet. Webb and Harmon watched. The other officers who'd been lingering in the hallway had stopped. Kate could feel eyes on her back. This was the moment. The test within the test. Comply and submit to humiliation. Refuse and give him excuse to dismiss her application. Is that standard protocol, sir? Vance's jaw tightened. It is now. I give the orders here, Lieutenant. You follow them. That's how the military works. Or did they not teach you that wherever you came from? Kate let the silence hold for 3 seconds. 4, 5. Let the tension build. Let everyone in that room feel the weight of what was happening. Then she smiled. Not a friendly smile, not a warm smile. The smile that crossed her face was cold and sharp and dangerous. The smile of someone who knew something everyone else in the room didn't. Sir, she said quietly, you just told a Navy SEAL to strip. The words hit like a flashbang in a closed room. Every man froze. Kate reached for her jacket, slowly, with the deliberate precision of someone who'd spent 8 years learning to move with perfect control. She unbuttoned it. 1 button, 2, 3, 4. She shrugged the jacket off her shoulders. Underneath, her tan t-shirt clung to her frame. Athletic, muscular in the way that came from functional training rather than aesthetics. And on her left shoulder, visible through the thin fabric, unmistakable even from across the room, was the tattoo. The trident, eagle perched above an anchor. Trident spear crossed with a pistol. The symbol of naval special warfare. The mark that separated SEALs from every other warrior in the American military. Below it, in clean black ink, Team 3. Below that, service dates spanning 8 years. Webb's mouth opened. Nothing came out. Harmon took a half step backward. Vance had gone completely still. The color drained from his face like water from a broken vessel. Kate held her jacket in her left hand. Let the moment breathe. Let every person in that hallway see what Vance had just stepped into. You want to test if I can follow orders. Her voice remained quiet, calm, the kind of calm that came from spending years in situations where panic meant death. I've taken orders under enemy fire in Fallujah while dragging wounded teammates through buildings that were actively burning. I've followed orders at 0300 hours in the Pacific Ocean during operations you will never have clearance to know existed. She took 1 step forward. Vance didn't move. I've executed classified missions in locations that aren't on any map you've ever seen. I've made tactical decisions under pressure that you can't imagine. I've done things in service of this country that will never be discussed outside of rooms you'll never be allowed to enter. Another step. She was close now, close enough to see the sweat forming on Vance's upper lip. So, if you want to continue this performance, Captain, I suggest you choose your next words very carefully, because right now you have exactly two options. You can conduct a legitimate assessment according to proper military protocol, or you can explain to Admiral Frank Dalton why you ordered decorated naval special warfare operator with 8 years of combat service to undress in front of your officers. The silence that followed was absolute. Someone in the hallway coughed. The sound seemed impossibly loud. Vance's mouth worked. No sound came out at first. Then barely audible. You're a SEAL. Kate's eyes never left his face. Team 3, 8 years of service, 3 combat deployments to Iraq and Afghanistan, multiple classified operations I'm not authorized to discuss, current active duty status with Naval Special Warfare Command. She held up the jacket. Anything else you'd like me to remove, sir? Nobody spoke. Kate put the jacket back on, buttoned it with the same deliberate precision she'd used to remove it, adjusted the collar, smoothed the fabric. Now, she looked directly at Vance. If this assessment is legitimate, I'd like to begin. If it's not, I have a very detailed report to file with Admiral Dalton, Inspector General's office, and quite possibly the media about what happens when senior officers abuse their authority to sexually harass female personnel. The words hung in the air like smoke. Vance found his voice. It came out strangled. Wrong. We'll proceed with the evaluation. Outstanding. Kate's tone remained professional. No gloating, no triumph, just the flat professionalism of someone who'd made their point and now expected compliance. Where's the first assessment? Training grounds. Vance couldn't meet her eyes. Obstacle course. Standard physical evaluation. Perfect. Lead the way, Captain. The walk from the administrative building to the training grounds took 8 minutes. Nobody spoke. Vance walked ahead, his posture stiff. Webb and Harmon followed. Kate brought up the rear, maintaining proper interval. Behind them, she could hear whispered conversation starting. The word was spreading. That's a SEAL. Female SEAL. Did you see the trident? Holy shit, did you see what just happened? Let them talk. The training grounds occupied 5 acres of Colorado dirt, obstacle course, firing range, combat training facilities. Everything needed to test whether someone could handle physical and mental stress. Other candidates had gathered. 15 men in PT uniforms waiting for their assessment slots. They turned as the group approached, saw Kate in her ill-fitting army fatigues, saw Vance's expression. The whispers intensified. Vance stopped near the obstacle course start line. A master sergeant stood there with a stopwatch and clipboard. He was old, late 50s, the kind of weathered that came from decades of training troops in harsh conditions. His name tape read, Reeves. Sergeant Reeves, Vance said, voice still shaky. This candidate will run the obstacle course, standard timing. Reeves looked at Kate. His eyes dropped to her shoulder where the trident showed through her shirt. His entire demeanor shifted. He straightened, not quite coming to attention, but close. Ma'am, the respect in his voice was immediate and genuine. Sergeant, Kate moved to the start line. Reeves held up the stopwatch. Standard course, ma'am, 15 obstacles. Average completion time is 3 minutes. Base record is 2 minutes, 43 seconds. You'll run on my whistle. Kate scanned the course. Wall climb, tire run, rope climb, monkey bars, hurdles, mud crawl, balance beam, more walls. It was familiar. She'd run similar courses hundreds of times. In buds, in training, in preparation for missions. Her body knew this language. She stretched briefly. Hamstrings, quads, shoulders. Not because she needed to, because it gave her time to observe. Webb was standing 20 meters down the course near the mud pit. He held something in his hand, a metal bar. Training equipment that should have been stored, not positioned on the course. Sabotage. Kate filed the information away. Let him try. Ready, ma'am? Reeves asked. Ready. The whistle pierced the morning air. Kate exploded forward. Her boots hit the dirt with driving force. The first obstacle was a 6-foot wall. She hit it at full sprint. Right foot on the wall at hip height. Left hand grabbed the top edge, core muscles engaged. She powered up and over in one smooth motion, landed in a roll on the far side. Momentum carried her forward without breaking stride. 9.8 seconds. The tire run came next. 12 tires laid in staggered pattern. The trap was going too fast and catching a foot. Kate had learned this lesson in her first week of Bud ES. Ball of the foot only. Never the heel. Each step precise. Rhythmic. Like a drum beat. Left, right, left, right, left, right. 14.2 seconds through. Rope climb loomed ahead. 30 feet of thick manila rope hanging from a steel frame. Most people use their legs. Wrapped the rope, climbed with full body. Kate grabbed the rope with both hands and went straight up. Hand over hand. Pure upper body, no leg wrap, arms burning but controlled. The muscles in her back and shoulders had been built through thousands of pull-ups, hundreds of hours of training years, of carrying heavy loads through hostile terrain. She hit the top platform in 20 seconds flat. Below, she could see the entire course. Webb was definitely positioning that metal bar, trying to be subtle, failing. Kate descended the rope in controlled drops. Handbrake technique. Fast but safe. Hit the ground and sprinted again. Monkey bars. Her hands found each rung without looking. Muscle memory guided her across. Dismount at the far end, no pause. The hurdles required explosive power from standing position. She cleared each one with inches to spare. Form perfect, landing soft. Loading the next jump, ahead the mud pit waited, 20 meters of thick Colorado mud, rope stretched across it at knee height. You had to crawl under. Most people went slow, tried to stay clean. Kate had crawled through mud in places where enemy fighters were actively shooting. A training pit was nothing. Webb stood at the pit's edge, metal bar in hand, grinning. Kate approached at full sprint, 30 meters, 25, 20. Webb stepped forward, started to position the bar across her path, low enough to trip, high enough to cause injury. Kate saw it coming from 15 meters out. Peripheral vision trained to catch threats, movement at the edge of awareness. She didn't slow down. 10 meters, 5. At the last possible second, Kate's boots locked. Full emergency stop. Dust exploded around her feet. She stopped exactly 6 inches from the bar. Perfect control. Webb's grin vanished. His eyes went wide. She'd seen the trap, calculated stopping distance at full sprint, executed flawlessly. Kate looked at him, then at the bar, then back at him. She walked forward slowly, reached out, grabbed the metal bar from his hands in one smooth motion. Her grip was iron. "Move," she said quietly. Webb stood frozen. The bar hung between them. Kate's voice dropped even lower. "I said move, Lieutenant." He stumbled backward. She tossed the bar aside. It hit the dirt with a heavy thud. Then she dropped into the mud and crawled. Fast. Under the rope with inches of clearance. Elbows driving, legs pushing. She emerged on the far side completely covered in mud. Didn't pause. Kept running. The final obstacles blurred past. Balance beam, more walls, a cargo net climb, parallel bars requiring upper body strength to traverse. Kate hit each one with the precision of someone who'd made a career out of turning her body into a weapon. She crossed the finish line and stopped. Reeves stared at his stopwatch like it had personally betrayed him. "Ma'am?" His voice carried disbelief. 2 minutes, 9 seconds. The number hung in the air. Base record was 2:43. Kate had shattered it by 34 seconds. Nobody spoke. Reeves walked to her slowly, stopped at attention, saluted. Kate returned the salute, mud still dripping from her uniform. She turned toward Vance. Mud covered her uniform. Her breathing was elevated but controlled. She wasn't even close to exhaustion. "What's next, Captain?" Vance stared at her. His face had gone from pale to red. Humiliation mixed with rage, mixed with something else. Fear, maybe. "Firearms range," he managed. "Live fire evaluation." "Outstanding. Lead the way." The walk to the range was longer, more time for the news to spread. By the time they arrived, a crowd had formed. 20 personnel, 30, more arriving every minute. Word traveled fast on military bases. Female SEAL destroyed the obstacle course record. Now she's shooting. The range was standard, 50 meters. Paper targets, multiple firing positions. A range master stood ready. Master Sergeant, late 50s, gray hair, the weathered look of someone who'd spent decades around weapons. Vance pulled him aside. Kate watched from 30 feet away, couldn't hear the words, could see the body language. Vance giving instructions, the range master looking uncertain, then nodding. Sabotage attempt number 2. The range master returned with a rifle. M4 carbine, standard issue. He handed it to Kate along with 3 magazines. Standard qualification, ma'am. 50 meters, 10 moving targets, prone position, ready when you are. Kate took the rifle, checked the chamber, clear, checked the magazine, loaded. But something felt wrong. The weight was off. She ejected the magazine, examined the ammunition. 55 grain rounds, lighter than standard 62 grain M855. Different ballistics, different point of impact. Vance had switched the ammunition, hoping she wouldn't notice. Hoping her zero would be off. Hoping she'd miss. Kate looked at him. He was watching, waiting for her to fail. She said nothing, just adjusted her grip slightly, compensated mentally for the ballistic difference. 55 grain rounds had flatter trajectory at short range, but were more susceptible to wind. No wind today. The flags on the range hung limp. She'd make it work. Kate moved to the firing line, dropped into prone position. The rifle came to her shoulder like it had always been there. Sight alignment, sight picture, breathing control, trigger finger indexed alongside the receiver until ready to fire. The targets began moving downrange. Paper silhouettes on mechanical rails, random patterns, speed variations. Kate's finger moved to the trigger. Breath in, half breath out. Hold, squeeze. The rifle barked. First target dropped. She didn't pause. Smooth transition to target 2. Breath, squeeze, drop. Target 3, 4, 5. Each round placed with surgical precision. Center mass, the way she'd been taught, the way she'd executed in places where missing meant teammates died. 6, 7, 8. Her breathing remained controlled, heart rate steady. The rifle was just an extension of her will. Point, fire, target drops. 9, 10. The final target fell. Silence held for 3 seconds. The rangemaster walked down range to examine the targets. He was gone for 2 minutes. When he returned, his face carried an expression somewhere between awe and disbelief. Ma'am, 10 targets, 10 center mass hits, 0 misses. He paused. I've trained Olympic shooters and Secret Service marksmen. I've never seen shooting like that. Kate safed the rifle, stood, handed it back. Where did you learn to shoot like this? The rangemaster asked. Buds, then 4 combat deployments. Then 10,000 hours of practice because lives depend on accuracy, Master Sergeant. She turned to Vance. What's next? His jaw was tight enough to crack teeth. Hand-to-hand combat evaluation. You'll spar with Lieutenant Webb. Kate looked at Webb. He'd gone pale. She remembered now where she'd seen him before. Not at Fort Carson. Helmand Province. 3 years ago. Extraction mission. Taliban ambush. IED detonation. 1 soldier down and bleeding. Kate had pulled him through 50 meters of fire to the medevac zone. Never saw his face. Classified operation. No names. Mission protocol demanded immediate extraction after objectives complete. But she recognized his eyes now. The shape of his jaw. The way he carried his left shoulder slightly forward from an injury that had never quite healed right. Webb recognized her too. She could see it in his face. Ready when you are, Lieutenant, Kate said quietly. They moved to the combat training mat, a 20 by 20 square of padded surface. Enough room to move, not enough room to run. Webb stepped onto the mat. He was bigger than her. Stronger, probably. 6 inches taller, 50 pounds heavier. All muscle. None of it mattered. Kate tied her hair back into a tight ponytail, stepped onto the mat. A referee stood at the edge. Captain from the Provost Marshal's office. He'd been called in to observe. Make it official. Standard combatives rules, the referee announced. Tap out ends the match. Submission holds allowed. No strikes to the throat or groin. Fight until one combatant submits, or I call it. Understood. Yes, sir, Webb said. Understood. Kate confirmed. Begin. Webb charged immediately. It was the wrong move. Telegraphed. Desperate. He came in hard with a double-leg takedown attempt. The kind of thing that worked against amateurs who froze under pressure. Kate sidestepped. The movement was minimal, efficient, just enough to make him miss. As he passed, she grabbed his extended arm, twisted, used his own momentum against him. Webb's face hit the mat in 1.6 seconds. The crowd gasped. Kate held the armbar, not locked, just controlled. Enough pressure to demonstrate control without injury. Again, she said, released him, stepped back. Webb got up, breathing hard, embarrassed. He came in more carefully this time. Better stance, lateral movement. Feints, good technique. He'd been trained well. Kate matched his intensity, blocked his strikes with minimal movement, countered with measured force. They exchanged blows for 30 seconds. Real sparring. Technical. Precise. Then Kate saw the opening. Webb dropped his right shoulder a fraction too much before throwing a hook. Telegraphing the punch, she waited. He threw the hook. She ducked under, got inside his guard, swept his leg. As he fell, she controlled the descent. Landed on top with knee on his chest. Perfect positioning. Stop, she said. Your stance is solid, but you're dropping your right shoulder before you hook. Shows me what's coming. Fix it. Webb stared up at her, confused. She was teaching him. Mid-fight, rather than press her advantage, she was correcting his technique. Try again, Kate said. Stood, offered her hand. He took it. She pulled him up. They reset, circled. This time Webb kept his shoulder level. The hook came cleaner, faster. Kate had to work harder to slip it. Better, she said. Again. They sparred for 2 full minutes, the longest anyone had lasted against her. Webb improved noticeably as they went, following her corrections, adapting, learning. Finally, Kate decided to end it. She closed distance, got double underhooks, executed a picture-perfect judo throw. Webb hit the mat hard. Before he could recover, she had him in an arm triangle choke. Textbook position. Applied with perfect pressure. Tap, she said quietly. Never. Webb's voice strained. Kate increased pressure incrementally. Not enough to injure, just enough to make breathing difficult. Webb's hands slapped the mat 3 times. She released immediately. Rolled off, stood, offered her hand again. This time when Webb took it, something had changed in his eyes. Respect, recognition, maybe something else. He stood, breathing hard. Thank you, Commander. It was the first time anyone had used her rank. Kate looked at him. You're a good fighter, Lieutenant Webb. Don't waste it following bad leaders. The words landed with weight. She turned to face Vance. The crowd had grown to over 50 personnel, all watching, all silent. Assessment complete, Captain. Vance looked like he'd swallowed glass. My office. Now. They walked back to the administrative building. Just the 2 of them. Vance didn't speak. His jaw worked constantly like he was grinding his teeth to powder. Inside his office, he closed the door, stood behind his desk, putting furniture between them like it would protect him. I know who you really are, he said, voice low, dangerous. Commander Catherine Brennan, SEAL Team 3. I know this is a setup. Kate said nothing. You think you can destroy my career? I've got 18 years in this uniform. Connections all the way to division level. Friends who believe in what I'm doing here. You're just another diversity hire who got lucky with Hell Week. Lucky, Kate's voice remained calm. I outperformed 90% of male candidates in every metric. I earned every single qualification. Want to compare service records, Captain? Vance leaned forward. Here's what's going to happen. You'll write a report saying I passed your integrity test with flying colors. Or I'll make sure every officer on this base knows you're a planted snitch who entraps fellow soldiers. I'll destroy your reputation. You'll never work in this military again. Kate stepped forward, invaded his space. He stepped back involuntarily, hit his own desk. Go ahead, she said softly. Tell them. Announce to every soldier on this base that you ordered a decorated SEAL with 3 combat deployments to strip in front of your officers. See how that plays. See how Admiral Dalton reacts when he hears you threaten a federal investigator. See how your connections protect you when this goes public. Vance's eyes darted, looking for escape, finding none. One more test, he said desperately. Tonight, live fire leadership exercise. You fail that you've got nothing, no evidence, no case. Kate smiled, that cold, dangerous smile. Set it up, Captain. Let's see what you've got. The afternoon sun hung low over Fort Carson, casting long shadows across the training facilities. Kate stood outside the administrative building uniform, still caked with dried mud from the obstacle course. She had 2 hours before the live fire exercise. Time enough to clean up, time enough to think. But first she needed to find Lieutenant Avery Sullivan. The women's locker room was at the far end of the physical training complex, a squat concrete building that smelled like disinfectant and old sweat. Kate pushed through the door into fluorescent-lit sterility. 3 shower stalls, a row of metal lockers, 2 wooden benches worn smooth by years of use, empty except for one figure sitting hunched on the far bench. Lieutenant Avery Sullivan looked up as Kate entered. Recognition flashed across her face immediately. The woman from the morning, the one who'd helped her pick up dropped files. But now that woman wore a uniform covered in mud and carried herself like someone who'd just dismantled 3 men's egos in front of 50 witnesses. Commander Brennan, Avery's voice was quiet, respectful, afraid. Just Brennan is fine. Kate moved to a locker, began stripping off the muddy uniform. You saw what happened here today. Everyone saw what happened today. It's all over the base. Avery's hands twisted together, nervous energy she couldn't contain. You're the SEAL, the one who beat the obstacle course record, who made Lieutenant Webb look like a trainee. Kate pulled a clean shirt from her bag. I did what I was trained to do. You did more than that. Avery stood, crossed to her own locker, pulled out a phone and a small external hard drive. Her hands shook slightly as she held them. You made Captain Vance afraid. I've been on this base for 14 months. I've watched him destroy careers, ruin lives. I've watched women resign rather than keep serving under him. And in one morning, you made him afraid. Kate turned to face her fully. Admiral Dalton told me you have been documenting. For 6 months, Avery's voice cracked slightly. 17 separate incidents, with my dates, witnesses, audio recordings when I could get them. I've been building a case because nobody else would, because every time someone reports him, the complaint disappears. He has protection. Friends in division who think he's just old school, just tough, just maintaining standards. They're wrong. I know they're wrong. Tears formed at the edges of Avery's chest but didn't fall. My sister was Army, different base, 2 years ago. She reported harassment, sexual assault. They buried it, said she was making trouble, hurting unit cohesion. She couldn't handle it. 6 months later, the sentence didn't need finishing. Kate's jaw tightened. She'd seen this before. Different bases, different services, same story. Women trying to serve. Men who saw their presence as threat rather than asset. Command structures that valued silence over justice. I'm sorry about your sister. She was 24. Avery wiped her eyes roughly. She wanted to serve. She believed in the mission, and they destroyed her for trying to do her job. Kate took the phone and hard drive from Avery's shaking hands. Keep recording everything today. Document times, witnesses. If Vance or his people say anything, do anything, I want it logged. Understood. What are you going to do? I'm going to give Admiral Dalton enough evidence to bury Vance so deep he never commands troops again. Your sister deserves justice. So do you. So does every woman who will come through hereafter. Hope flickered across Avery's face. Fragile but real. You really think you can stop him? Kate's eyes held hers. I know I can. The question is whether you are brave enough to testify when the time comes. I am. No hesitation. I've been ready for 6 months. I just needed someone to listen. Then we finish this. Today. Kate showered quickly, changed into fresh fatigues. By the time she emerged, Avery had composed herself. professional mask back in place. But something had shifted. She stood straighter, shoulders back, the posture of someone who'd found an ally after months of fighting alone. They walked out together. Avery peeled off toward the intelligence building. Kate headed for the mess hall. She needed calories before the night exercise, needed to refuel. The mess hall was three-quarters full. Late lunch crowd. The moment Kate walked through the door, conversations stopped. Every head turned. She could feel the weight of attention like physical pressure. Word had definitely spread. She grabbed a tray, loaded it with protein and carbs. Chicken, rice, vegetables, nothing fancy, just fuel. Found an empty table in the corner and ate methodically. Tasting nothing, just processing calories. People stared, some pointed, most just watched with the fascination of people who'd witnessed something they couldn't quite believe. A master sergeant approached, old, weathered, carried himself with the confidence of someone who'd seen everything military life could throw at him. "Ma'am, Master Sergeant Clayton Reeves, range master from this morning." Kate looked up. "Sergeant Reeves." "Just wanted to say, ma'am, that was the finest shooting I've seen in 30 years. You've got a gift." "Thank you, Sergeant. Training and repetition mostly." Reeves smiled slightly. "Desert Storm, Operation Desert Saber. I was there when we punched through Iraqi lines, saw some of the finest soldiers America ever produced do their work. You reminded me of them today. That same competence, that certainty." "High praise, Sergeant." "Earned praise, ma'am." He straightened. "Also wanted you to know. Captain Vance ordered me to sabotage your ammunition. I logged it, wrote up a formal statement. That's not how we do things." Kate's expression didn't change. "I noticed." "Figured you did. Just wanted you to know I logged it. Wrote up a formal statement about being ordered to sabotage a candidate's assessment. That's not how we do things. Not in my army." "Thank you, Sergeant." Reeves nodded once, walked away. His statement would be useful. Evidence. Documentation. The kind of thing that made cases bulletproof. Kate finished eating, checked her watch. 16:30 hours, 2.5 hours until the live fire exercise. Enough time to scout the kill house facility, understand the terrain. She disposed of her tray and walked out into afternoon sun. The kill house complex sat at the eastern edge of Fort Carson, a series of connected buildings designed to simulate urban combat environments. Multiple rooms, narrow corridors, stairs, everything soldiers would encounter in places like Fallujah or Ramadi or any of a dozen cities where America had fought street-to-street battles. Kate approached from the west. The facility was quiet, no active training. She walked the perimeter slowly, observed, calculated. Standard setup. Concrete walls reinforced to handle live fire. Observation towers at each corner. Entry points at north and south. Windows covered with ballistic glass. The whole thing designed to be reconfigurable. Walls could be moved. Rooms changed. Keep the training realistic. She completed her circuit, memorized the layout, identified strong points and weak points. Understood how attackers would move, where defenders would position. It was muscle memory now. 8 years of studying terrain, learning to see ground the way enemies saw it, understanding how buildings became battlefields. Scouting the objective, Kate turned. Lieutenant Griffin Webb stood 20 feet away. He'd changed into fresh fatigues, face cleaned up, but he carried himself differently now, less swagger, more uncertainty. "Understanding the terrain," Kate replied. "Standard practice." Kate looked at Webb. He'd gone pale. Something about his eyes seemed familiar. The way he carried his left shoulder slightly forward from an old injury. She'd seen him before, somewhere, but the memory wouldn't come. Kate said nothing. Let him speak. "I was in that vehicle, caught shrapnel in my shoulder and leg. Couldn't move, couldn't fight. Taliban was closing in. Then someone came through the smoke. Female operator, face covered, no name tape. She grabbed me by my vest and dragged me 50 meters through active fire to the medevac zone. I tried to thank her. She was already gone." "Classified operation," Kate said quietly. "No names, mission protocol." "That was you." Not a question, a statement. "That was me." Webb was silent for a long moment. You saved my life. And this morning I tried to sabotage your obstacle course run on Vance's orders. You did. I'm sorry. Kate studied his face, saw genuine remorse, genuine shame, the kind that came from someone realizing they'd betrayed their own values. Why did you do it? Webb looked away. Because I was afraid. Because Vance has power here. Because I thought following him was the safe play, the smart play. He met her eyes again. I was wrong. Yes, you were. How do I fix it? Kate considered the question. Tonight's exercise. Vance is going to try something. Sabotage. False intel. Something designed to make me fail. When that happens, you have a choice. Follow him one more time, or stand for what's right. I'll stand with you. Don't promise that yet. Wait until you're actually in the moment. Wait until the pressure is real. Then decide. Webb nodded slowly. For what it's worth, Commanders, what you did today. Making Vance back down, destroying his little performance. That's the bravest thing I've seen anyone do on this base. It's not brave, it's necessary. There's a difference. Maybe, but it still mattered. Kate checked her watch. Exercise starts in 2 hours. Get your gear ready. This is going to be a long night. Webb saluted. Kate returned it. He walked away toward the barracks. She stood alone in the fading light, thought about Avery Sullivan and her dead sister, thought about Webb and his moment of choice coming tonight, thought about all the small decisions that added up to either honor or betrayal. The sun touched the horizon, orange and red spreading across Colorado sky. Time to finish this. 1900 hours. Full dark. Kate stood at the kill house briefing area wearing full combat kit, plate carrier with ceramic plates, helmet, night vision goggles mounted but raised, rifle loaded with blank ammunition. The weight was familiar, comforting. This was her element. Captain Vance stood before 6 soldiers, Webb, Harmon, 4 others Kate didn't know, all kitted up, all waiting. Tonight's exercise is a hostage rescue scenario, Vance had announced. 6 casualties trapped in the building. Unknown number of enemy combatants. Your team will conduct tactical entry, clear the structure, extract the casualties. Time limit is 15 minutes. Commander Brennan, your team leader. Kate nodded once. Understood. Radio frequency is 34.5. I'll be in the observation tower providing tactical updates. Any questions? Rules of engagement, Kate asked. Treat all threats as hostile. Blank ammunition only. Role players will indicate hits by dropping. Casualties are marked with red tape. Extract them to the southern exit point. Clear. Vance's eyes held something dark. Anticipation, maybe. He was planning something. Kate could see it in the set of his jaw. The way he wouldn't quite meet her eyes. Let him plan. She'd adapt. Team on me. Kate gestured the 6 soldiers closer. They formed a tight circle around her and, Webb, your point man. Your job is first through every door. Trust your training. Harmon rear security. Nobody comes up behind us. The rest of you standard stack formation. Maintain interval. Communicate constantly. Clear. Clear, they responded in rough unison. We're going to move fast but careful. Speed matters but not more than thoroughness. Miss one threat and people die. We clear every corner, every closet, every shadow. Questions? Silence. Good, let's move. The team approached the southern entry point. Kate took position, second in stack behind Webb. She could feel his tension. Adrenaline and fear mixed together. He wanted to prove himself, wanted to make up for this morning. She keyed her radio. Actual, this is ground team, beginning entry now. Copy ground team. Vance's voice crackled in her ear. Proceed with caution. Webb kicked the door. It swung inward. Smoke poured out. Thick and artificial. Strobe lights flashed inside, simulating explosions. The disorientation was immediate and intentional. Move, Kate commanded. Webb flowed through the door. Rifle up. Kate followed. The team stacked in behind them. The first room was large, 20 by 30, multiple doors leading deeper. Furniture scattered, perfect ambush terrain. Left door, Webb called. 2 role players dressed as enemy combatants stepped out. Webb engaged. Double tap each. Both dropped, indicating hits. Clean work. The team cleared left. Small room. Empty except for one casualty marked with red tape. Kate grabbed him. Casualty secured. Keep moving. They pushed deeper. The smoke thickened. Visibility dropped to maybe 10 feet. The strobes made depth perception difficult. Everything felt disjointed. Chaotic. This was the point. Train under stress. See how people react when conditions degrade. Right quarter, Harmon called from the rear. Kate spun. Two more role players. Harmon engaged. Dropped them both. Good reaction time. The team moved room by room. Clearing. Extracting casualties. The work was methodical. Precise. Kate called commands. The team executed. It felt almost routine. Too routine. That's when her radio crackled. Vance's voice came through urgent, almost panicked. Ground team, this is actual. Enemy reinforcements spotted. Sector 3, multiple hostiles moving to your position from the south. You need to abort extraction. Fall back to Rally Point Alpha immediately. Acknowledge. Kate stopped the team with a raised fist. Analyze the information. Sector 3 was behind them. The direction they'd entered from. If enemy reinforcements were coming from the south, they'd be cut off from their exit point. Standard tactical response would be to fall back, regroup, reassess. But something felt wrong. The sound signatures didn't match. If hostiles were moving through Sector 3, she'd hear footsteps, movement. The kill house was designed to amplify sound, make soldiers rely on audio cues. Silence. Kate moved to a window, looked out towards Sector 3. The area was visible in ambient light from the observation tower. Empty. No movement. No thermal signatures from role players. The intel was false. Ground team, did you copy? Vance's voice more insistent. Enemy reinforcements, Sector 3. Abort extraction. Now that's a direct order. Webb looked at Kate, questioning. The rest of the team waited. This was the moment. Trust chain of command, or trust her own assessment. Kate keyed her radio. Actual ground team, request confirmation on Sector 3 contact. I have no visual or audio confirmation of hostiles. Please verify. Silence for 3 seconds. Then Vance's voice came back hard. Ground team, that is confirmed intelligence. Enemy reinforcements are moving on your position. You will abort extraction and fall back. That is a direct order from command. Acknowledge immediately. The team was looking at her now. All of them. Webb especially. This was his choice too. Follow bad orders because they came from authority, or trust the operator who'd saved his life 3 years ago. Kate made her decision. Negative actual. Your intelligence is faulty. I have clear line of sight to Sector 3. No hostile movement. No audio signatures. No thermal indication. We are proceeding with extraction as briefed. Ground team, you are disobeying direct orders. Vance's voice rose. I am ordering you to abort and fall back now. Kate reached to her radio, switched it off. Complete radio silence. She turned to her team. That intel was fabricated, designed to make us fail. We have a clear path forward. 2 more casualties to extract. We're going to complete this mission exactly as briefed. Commander, he's going to court-martial you for this. Harmon's voice carried worry. Let him try. Webb, you're still on point. Let's finish this. Webb's face showed internal struggle. 5 seconds of it. Then he nodded. Yes, ma'am. They pushed forward. 2 more rooms, found the final casualties, extracted them to the southern exit point. The whole operation took 11 minutes and 18 seconds. Under the time limit, all casualties secured, 0 friendly losses. Mission success. The team emerged from the kill house into cool night air, breathing hard, adrenaline still pumping, but alive. Successful. Captain Vance stormed toward them from the observation tower. His face was purple with rage. Behind him came 2 other figures. Kate recognized one immediately. Admiral Frank Dalton, leaning on his cane, flanked by a JAG officer in dress uniform carrying a briefcase. This was it. The moment everything came together or fell apart. You disobeyed direct orders, Vance was shouting before he even reached them. I gave you tactical intelligence. I commanded you to fall back. You ignored me. Shut off your radio. That's insubordination. Dereliction of duty. I'm going to have you court-martialed for this. Kate stood at attention, said nothing. Dalton stepped forward, his voice cut through Vance's tirade like a blade. Captain Vance, explain to me why you gave false intelligence during a live training exercise. Vance spun toward Dalton. Sir, I was testing her ability to handle bad intel under pressure. It's a legitimate training technique. Is it? Dalton's tone made it clear that wasn't a question. And does this legitimate technique involve lying to your subordinates, fabricating enemy positions, attempting to force tactical errors? Sir, I've been in the observation tower since 1900 hours, Captain. I heard every transmission. I watched every decision. You fed Commander Brennan false intelligence, specifically designed to make her abort a successful mission. When she correctly identified your intel as faulty and proceeded with extraction, you attempted to intimidate her into compliance through threats of court-martial. Vance's mouth worked. No sound came. Kate pulled the sealed envelope from her cargo pocket, the one Admiral Dalton had given her this morning in the safe house. She handed it to Vance. Captain Derek Vance, this was never about me proving anything. This was an integrity assessment of your command. Admiral Dalton tasked me with evaluating your leadership treatment of subordinates and compliance with equal opportunity regulations. She let that sink in. You failed every metric. Vance stared at the envelope like it was a live grenade. You set me up. No, Dalton stepped closer. We gave you every opportunity to be the officer you should have been. Every scenario was legitimate. Every test was standard. You chose to harass, to sabotage, to threaten. Those were your choices. Sir, with respect, this is entrapment. This is accountability. Dalton's voice carried the weight of 4 decades in uniform. Commander Brennan volunteered for this assignment after 3 formal complaints about hostile environment in your program were filed and buried. Your treatment of her today, the harassment in your office, the sabotage on the obstacle course, the ammunition tampering, the threats, the falsified intelligence, all documented, all witnessed. Lieutenant Avery Sullivan stepped forward from the shadows. She held her phone, an external hard drive. Sir, Lieutenant Avery Sullivan, Intelligence. I have 6 months of evidence. Captain Vance created a hostile work environment. 17 separate incidents, gender-based discrimination, retaliation against female personnel who reported him, times, dates, witnesses, audio recordings. I'm prepared to submit formal testimony. Griffin Webb stepped forward next, came to attention. Sir, Lieutenant Griffin Webb, I witnessed and participated in sabotage of Commander Brennan's obstacle course assessment this morning on Captain Vance's direct orders. I was wrong. I request permission to submit a formal statement and testify at any investigation or court-martial proceedings. Sergeant Harmon stayed silent, didn't step forward, didn't volunteer. Not everyone found redemption. Vance looked around wildly, searching for allies, finding none. This isn't fair. I've served 18 years. I have friends, connections. You can't just destroy my career over what? Dalton's voice dropped to something cold and final. Over ordering a decorated combat veteran to strip in front of your officers, over sabotaging official assessments, over creating an environment so toxic that women resign rather than serve, over falsifying intelligence during training. Which part seems unfair to you, Captain? Vance had no answer. The JAG officer stepped forward, opened his briefcase, removed official paperwork. Captain Derek Vance, by order of the Fort Carson Commanding General and with authorization from Division, you are hereby relieved of command of the Elite Tactical Leadership Program, effective immediately. You are suspended from all duties pending Inspector General investigation. Formal charges are being filed under Article 92, failure to obey lawful order and regulation. Article 93, cruelty and maltreatment. And Article 134, conduct prejudicial to good order and discipline. He handed Vance the papers. You have 72 hours to respond to these charges. Your security clearance is suspended. Your access to training facilities is revoked. You will report to the Installation Commander's office at 0800 tomorrow. Do you understand these orders? Vance's hands shook as he took the papers. Yes. Then you're dismissed. 2 military police officers stepped forward. They didn't handcuff Vance. Didn't need to. They just positioned themselves on either side of him, an escort, a reminder that he was no longer in command of anything. Vance walked away between them, his career ending with each step. Kate watched him go, felt no satisfaction, no triumph, just the quiet certainty that something necessary had been accomplished. Dalton turned to face the assembled soldiers. 20 of them now. Word had spread. More had gathered to watch. "Let me be clear about something," Dalton said. His voice carried across the training ground. "What happened today wasn't about one bad officer. It's about the culture we allow, the behavior we tolerate, the silence we maintain when we should speak." He paused, let the words land. "Some of you followed Captain Vance because you thought his behavior represented strength. You thought toughness meant cruelty. You thought leadership meant domination." His eyes swept the crowd. "You were wrong. Commander Brennan showed you what real strength looks like today. Competence without arrogance. Confidence without cruelty. The ability to face prejudice and respond not with anger, but with excellence." Kate stood silent. Let Dalton speak. "That's what we should demand from ourselves. That's what we should expect from our leaders. And that's what I'll accept nothing less than going forward." He straightened despite the cane. "Dismissed." The crowd dispersed slowly, quietly, processing what they'd witnessed. Webb approached Kate, came to attention, saluted. "Commander Brennan, I request transfer to any unit under your command. I want to learn real leadership, the right way." Kate returned the salute, studied his face, saw genuine determination there, the kind that came from someone who'd made mistakes and wanted to do better. "Request granted, Lieutenant. Report to Naval Special Warfare Center, Coronado in 30 days. We'll see if you can handle SEAL training standards." Webb's eyes widened. "Ma'am, I'm Army. I can't." "You can request inter-service transfer. I'll endorse it. Whether you make it through BUDS is up to you, but you'll have your chance to prove yourself properly." "Thank you, ma'am. I won't let you down." "See that you don't." Webb walked away, purpose in his stride. Avery Sullivan remained. She looked exhausted, drained. But something had lifted from her shoulders. The weight of 6 months carrying evidence alone. "Your sister would be proud," Kate said quietly. Avery's eyes filled. "Thank you for listening, for believing me, for finishing this. You finished this. You gathered the evidence. You had the courage to step forward. I just gave you the platform. Still, thank you." Kate nodded, watched Avery walk toward the barracks. Dalton remained, leaning heavily on his cane now. The day had cost him. She could see it in the way he stood. "You did good work today, Kate." "I did what you trained me to do, sir." "More than that, you gave those soldiers something to think about, something to measure themselves against." He smiled slightly. Derek Vance spent 17 years bitter about washing out of SEAL selection. Today he learned why he wasn't good enough. Not because he wasn't strong, because he was cruel. What happens now? Investigation will take 60 days. Court-martial probable. He'll be lucky to retire at reduced rank. Dalton shifted his weight. "You'll be called to testify, along with Sullivan, Webb, Reeves, and probably a dozen others. I'll be there." "I know you will." Dalton extended his hand. "Finish out the week here. Make sure the transition goes smoothly. Then get back to Coronado. You've got work to do." Kate shook his hand. "Thank you, Admiral, for trusting me with this. Thank you for being everything I knew you would be." He walked toward his car, slow, careful, the cane taking real weight now. Kate stood alone in the darkness. The kill house loomed behind her, empty now, silent, just a building again. She thought about the day, the confrontation, the tests, the small moments of choice that had led to this moment. Webb deciding to step forward, Avery finding her courage, even Sergeant Reeves documenting the ammunition tampering. Individual choices, individual courage. That's how change happened. One person at a time, deciding that honor mattered more than convenience. Kate walked toward the barracks. Tomorrow she'd do the paperwork, make the reports official, ensure everything was documented properly. But tonight she'd rest, knowing that somewhere women who would never meet her would serve in environments just slightly better because of what happened today. That was enough. The Colorado morning arrived cold and clear. Kate stood outside the Fort Carson headquarters building at 0730, watching personnel stream through the main entrance. Enlisted, officers, civilians. The morning shift change brought hundreds of people to the central hub where the base administration conducted its daily business. Word had spread overnight. She could see it in the way people looked at her, some with respect, some with suspicion, some with the kind of curiosity reserved for people who just detonated a bomb in the middle of careful political structures. Captain Derek Vance's career had ended yesterday, but the ripples were just beginning. Kate had spent the night in transient quarters, a small room with a bed, a desk, and a window overlooking the training grounds. She'd slept 4 hours, not because she was troubled, because 4 hours was what her body had learned to need after years of operations where sleep was a luxury measured in minutes. She'd woken at 0500, run 8 miles through Fort Carson at a pace that would have destroyed most soldiers, showered, changed into a fresh uniform, eaten breakfast alone in a corner of the mess hall while people pretended not to stare. Now she waited for the final piece to fall into place. Admiral Dalton had called at 0700. His voice had carried the roughness of someone who'd also slept poorly. Inspector General team arrives at 0800. They'll want your statement first. Full deposition, everything that happened from the moment you entered that briefing room. Be thorough. Yes, sir. After that, you're done here. I've arranged transportation back to Coronado. You leave at 1400. Understood. Kate, Dalton's voice had softened slightly. What you did here matters, more than you know. Don't let anyone tell you different. The line had gone dead. Now Kate stood in the morning cold and waited for government bureaucracy to digest what she'd accomplished. The Inspector General team arrived in 2 black SUVs, 4 officers, 2 JAG lawyers, a paralegal with recording equipment. They moved with the efficient precision of people who conducted investigations as a full-time occupation. The senior investigator was a colonel, tall, gray hair, eyes that had seen every variation of military misconduct and found none of it surprising anymore. Her name tape read Morrison. No relation to the admiral, just coincidence. Commander Brennan, Colonel Morrison extended her hand. Yes, ma'am. I'm Colonel Sarah Morrison, Inspector General's office. This is my team. We need your full statement regarding Captain Vance's conduct and your undercover assessment of his command climate. I'm ready, ma'am. They moved to a conference room on the 3rd floor, windowless, soundproofed, a long table with chairs, recording equipment set up at one end. The paralegal tested the system, confirmed everything was operational. Kate sat. Colonel Morrison sat opposite. The JAG lawyers flanked them. One of them, a major with sharp eyes, began the recording. This is a formal statement for Inspector General Investigation Case number 4732 Alpha. Today's date is November 14th. Time is 08:15. Present are Commander Catherine Brennan, United States Navy, Colonel Sarah Morrison, Inspector General, Major Thomas Chen JAG, Captain Rebecca Walsh JAG, and Specialist Amanda Foster, Paralegal. The Major looked at Kate. Commander, do you understand this statement is being recorded and may be used in legal proceedings? I do. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? I do. Colonel Morrison leaned forward. Commander Brennan, please describe in your own words the events of November 13th, beginning with your arrival at Fort Carson. Kate began speaking. She kept her voice level, professional, recounted every detail. The briefing room, Vance's initial disrespect, the escalation to ordering her to remove her uniform, her revelation of SEAL status, the trident tattoo. She described the obstacle course, Webb's sabotage attempt, the metal bar, her record-breaking time, the firearms range, the ammunition tampering, Sergeant Reeves's statement, her perfect score despite the sabotage, the hand-to-hand combat, teaching Webb mid-fight, his recognition of her from Helmand Province, Vance's threats in his office, the live fire exercise, the false intelligence, her decision to ignore orders she knew were fabricated. The whole narrative took 90 minutes. Nobody interrupted. The lawyers took notes. The recording equipment captured everything. When she finished, Colonel Morrison sat back. That's quite a story, Commander. It's the truth, ma'am. I believe you. We've already interviewed Lieutenant Sullivan. Her recordings corroborate everything you've said. Lieutenant Webb's statement matches yours. Sergeant Reeves documented the ammunition tampering independently. We have 15 witnesses to the obstacle course incident, 23 witnesses to the live fire exercise conclusion. Morrison tapped her pen on the table. What Captain Vance did wasn't just inappropriate, it was criminal. Multiple violations of UCMJ. His career is over. The question now is whether this goes to court-martial or if he accepts non-judicial punishment and retires. That's above my pay grade, ma'am. It is, but your testimony will be crucial either way. Are you prepared to testify publicly if this goes to court-martial? Kate met her eyes. Yes, ma'am, every word I've said here I'll say under oath in front of anyone. Morrison nodded slowly. Thought you'd say that. You're dismissed, Commander. We'll contact you if we need additional information. Thank you for your service on this matter. Kate stood, saluted. The room returned it. She walked out into the hallway, felt the weight lift slightly. The official machinery was in motion now. Her part was mostly done. Mostly. She had one more person to see before she left Fort Carson. Lieutenant Avery Sullivan's office was in the intelligence building, a nondescript structure that held classified material and the people who processed it. Kate signed in at the security desk, showed her temporary credentials, was escorted to the second floor by an MP who looked about 19 and terrified of saying the wrong thing to a SEAL. Avery's office was small. One desk, two computer monitors, filing cabinets with combination locks. The walls were covered in maps and analysis reports, the organized chaos of someone who lived in information. Avery looked up as Kate entered. She looked different today. Lighter. The weight that had pressed down on her shoulders yesterday had lifted. Commander? She stood, almost came to attention, but caught herself. This wasn't formal. Avery, how are you holding up? Better, the IG team interviewed me this morning. 3 hours. They went through every recording I had, every document, every witness statement I'd collected. Avery's voice carried wonder. They believed me, all of it. No questions about whether I was making it up, no suggestions that maybe I'd misunderstood. They just believed me. Because you did the work. You documented everything, made it impossible to deny. Still, for 6 months, I thought maybe I was crazy. Maybe I was seeing things that weren't there. Maybe I was too sensitive. Avery sat down heavily. Do you know what it's like watching someone abuse power every single day and having nobody listen when you try to report it? Kate pulled a chair over. Sat. I know what it's like to be told you don't belong, that you're not good enough, that you're only here because someone lowered standards or needed to fill a quota. I heard that every day at SEAL training, heard it from instructors, from other candidates, from people who thought women in combat arms was a political statement instead of military necessity. How did you handle it? I outperformed them. Every single metric, every single test. I made it impossible for anyone to say I didn't earn my place. Kate leaned forward. But that's the trap. We shouldn't have to be twice as good to be considered half as worthy. We shouldn't have to document abuse for 6 months before anyone takes us seriously. The system is broken. We just happen to be the ones who can see the cracks. Avery was quiet for a moment. My sister, she didn't have your strength. She tried to fight, tried to report. But when nobody listened, when they buried her complaint, she just couldn't anymore. Your sister had strength. She fought as hard as she could with the tools she had. The system failed her, not the other way around. Tears formed at the edges of Avery's eyes. Thank you for saying that. It's true. And what you've done here, gathering this evidence, having the courage to step forward, that's your sister's legacy. You finished what she started. Avery wiped her eyes. The IG team said they're recommending me for promotion. Captain, and they want me to join a task force reviewing harassment reporting procedures Army-wide, using my documentation as a model for what should happen when someone reports misconduct. That's good. You earned it. I couldn't have done it without you. Kate stood. You did it before I got here. You just needed someone to amplify your voice. Now you have that platform. Use it. Make sure the next woman who tries to report doesn't have to fight for 6 months to be heard. Avery stood as well, extended her hand. Kate shook it. Will I see you again? Maybe. If this goes to court-martial, we'll both testify. Otherwise, our paths might not cross. But you have my contact information. If you ever need anything, you call. I will. Thank you, Commander, for everything. Kate left the intelligence building. The sun had climbed higher, warmer now. The cold morning edge had burned off. She had 4 hours before her ride to the airport, time enough for one final task. The transient quarters had a small office with a computer. Kate logged in using her credentials, pulled up the Naval Special Warfare Command personnel system, found the form she needed, inter-service transfer recommendation. Officer candidate, she filled in Lieutenant Griffin Webb's information. Army to Navy, recommended for basic underwater demolition SEAL training. Assessment based on observed performance under pressure, tactical proficiency, demonstrated courage, and capacity for growth. She wrote 3 paragraphs explaining why Webb deserved the chance. Mentioned Helmand Province, his recognition of his mistakes, his decision to step forward when it would have been easier to stay silent. She signed it digitally, submitted it through official channels. Whether Webb made it through BUDS wasn't her problem. She'd given him the opportunity. The rest was up to him. Kate logged out, packed her few belongings into a duffel bag, changed into civilian clothes. The uniform went into a garment bag. She'd worn it for less than 48 hours, done more damage to entrenched power structures than most people accomplished in careers. At 13:30, a driver arrived, young enlisted soldier. He loaded her bags into a military sedan without comment. The drive to Colorado Springs Airport took 40 minutes through mountain highways. Kate watched the landscape roll past, thought about what she'd accomplished: one officer removed from command, one toxic environment exposed, a dozen women who'd serve in slightly better conditions because someone had finally said enough. Small victories, but victories nonetheless. The airport was crowded. Thanksgiving travel season approaching. Families moving across the country to gather around tables and pretend dysfunction didn't exist for a few days. Kate's flight to San Diego departed at 1600. She checked in, passed through security, found a quiet corner of the terminal, and sat. Her phone buzzed. Text message from Admiral Dalton. IG confirmed, court-martial proceeding, you'll be called to testify in 60 days. Well done, Kate. Get some rest. She typed back. Yes, sir. The phone buzzed again. Different number. Unknown. Commander Brennan, this is Master Sergeant Reeves. I submitted my statement to IG. Also wanted you to know I'm retiring next month, 30 years. But before I go, I'm making sure every range master on this base knows what happened. Making sure they know what right looks like. Thank you for reminding an old soldier what we're supposed to be fighting for. Kate stared at the message, typed slowly. Thank you for your service, Sergeant. All 30 years of it. You did the right thing documenting that ammunition tampering. Made the case bulletproof. Send. Small victories, individual choices, people deciding honor mattered more than convenience. Her flight boarded. Kate found her seat. Window. She always took window seats. Habit from years of missions where understanding terrain meant survival. The plane lifted off. Colorado fell away below, mountains and high desert giving way to lower terrain. Kate closed her eyes, let herself drift. 3 months later, Naval Special Warfare Center, Coronado, California. Lieutenant Commander Catherine Brennan stood before a class of 30 SEAL candidates, Phase 3 combat training, and the final crucible before Trident qualification. The promotion had come through 6 weeks ago. Dalton had pinned the oak leaves on her collar himself, his last official act before full retirement. He'd looked frailer, thinner, the cane a permanent fixture now, but his eyes had still carried that sharp assessment. You're going to shape the next generation, he'd said. Make sure they're better than we were. Now Kate faced that next generation, 30 men and women between 22 and 31 years old, 5 female candidates, the highest number in SEAL history. Among the candidates stood Lieutenant Griffin Webb. He'd made it through Hell Week, made it through dive phase, made it through land warfare. Now he stood 3 weeks from graduation, thinner, harder, the swagger completely gone, replaced by something quieter and more dangerous. Today, we're covering close quarters combat, Kate announced. Her voice carried across the training mat. The scenarios you'll face in the field don't look like movies. They're chaotic, confusing. You'll have split seconds to make decisions that determine whether you and your teammates survive. She gestured to Webb. Lieutenant Webb, front and center. He moved forward, came to attention. At ease, we're going to demonstrate proper technique for confined space engagement. You'll act as the opponent. Yes, ma'am. They faced each other on the mat. The class formed a circle around them. The key to close quarters combat isn't strength, Kate said. It's leverage, timing, understanding how bodies move and where they're vulnerable. Watch. Webb attacked as instructed. Kate moved like water, redirected his force, took him down in 3 seconds, held him in a control position. See how I used his momentum against him? He committed to the attack. I just guided where that commitment went. Again. They ran the drill 10 times. Each iteration, Kate pointed out different details. Hand placement, foot position, weight distribution, the small technical adjustments that separated competent from exceptional. After the 10th iteration, she held Webb in an arm lock. What's the biggest lesson you've learned in Bud's Lieutenant? Webb's voice came strained from the uncomfortable position. That strength without discipline is just violence, ma'am. Real power comes from control. Good answer. She released him, helped him up. The class continued. Kate demonstrated techniques with different body types, showed how smaller operators could defeat larger opponents, how speed and precision mattered more than raw power. After 2 hours, she dismissed them for lunch. Webb lingered after the others left. Ma'am, I wanted to thank you again for the recommendation, for the second chance. You're earning that chance every day you're here. 3 weeks left. Don't waste it. I won't, ma'am. Fort Carson feels like a different life now. A life where I was following the wrong people for the wrong reasons. We all follow the wrong people sometimes. What matters is recognizing it and choosing better. Webb nodded, started to leave, turned back. Did you hear about Captain Vance? No, what happened? Court-martial concluded last week. Guilty on all charges, reduced to O1, discharged under other than honorable conditions. No pension, no benefits. They made an example. Kate absorbed that information, felt nothing, no satisfaction, no vindication, just a quiet acknowledgement that justice had occurred. Good. Maybe the next officer thinking about abusing power will remember what happened to him. Yes, ma'am. Thank you for everything. Webb left. Kate stood alone on the training mat, thought about the path that had led here. Buds as the first female candidate, years of combat deployments, Fort Carson, everything that came after. Her phone buzzed, text from Avery Sullivan. Just got orders, DIA advanced program, starting in January. Also, I'm engaged, met someone who actually listens when I talk. Weird concept. Thank you for showing me what it looks like to stand up and fight. You changed my life. Kate smiled, typed back. Congratulations on both counts. You changed your own life. I just gave you a push. Stay strong. Send, another buzz, different number. Admiral Dalton. Kate, doctor says 6 months, maybe less. Cancer's aggressive. I'm not afraid. I did what I came to do. Made sure the next generation has better examples than we had. You're going to carry that forward. I know you will. Thanks for being the best operator I ever trained. Semper Fi. Kate stared at the message for a long time. Felt something crack in her chest. Not breaking, just shifting, making room for grief that would come later. She typed carefully. You gave me the chance when nobody else would. You demanded I be better than everyone else, and then watched me prove it. You taught me that honor matters more than convenience, that doing right is more important than being comfortable. I'll carry that forward, Admiral, I promise. Thank you for everything. Send. The phone went dark. Kate walked outside. The California sun hit her face. Warm, bright. The Pacific Ocean stretched to the horizon. Endless blue. Somewhere in that vastness, submarines carried SEALs to places that didn't exist on maps. Operators conducted missions that would never be discussed. People who'd been trained right, led right, given examples of what strength actually looked like. Dalton's legacy, her legacy now. Kate walked toward the obstacle course. A new class was running it. First week candidates, struggling, suffering, learning what their bodies could endure when their minds refused to quit. She watched one candidate fall from the rope climb, hit the sand, lay there for 5 seconds. Then get up. Start climbing again. Female candidate, maybe 23, determined face, refusing to quit. Kate remembered being that candidate, remembered the falls, the failures, the moments where quitting would have been easier, but she'd had Dalton standing at the edge of the course, not making it easier, just demanding she'd be better. Now she was Dalton. The weight of that responsibility settled on her shoulders. Not uncomfortable, just present, real. She would train them right, demand excellence, accept nothing less than their absolute best. And when they succeeded, when they earned their tridents, they'd carry forward the same lesson. Competence over arrogance, discipline over cruelty, honor over convenience. The candidate completed the rope climb, dropped to the sand, breathing hard, covered in sweat, but she'd made it. Kate walked over. The candidate saw her, tried to come to attention, could barely stand. At ease. What's your name? Parker, ma'am. Petty Officer Second Class Jennifer Parker. How long have you been here, Parker? 4 days, ma'am. Hell Week starts in 3 days. You ready? Parker's face showed fear and determination in equal measure. I don't know, ma'am. I just know I'm not quitting. Good, because Hell Week isn't about being ready. It's about refusing to quit when everything in your body screams to stop. You think you can do that? Yes, ma'am. We'll see. Get back to your class. Yes, ma'am. Parker ran toward where her training group had formed up. Kate watched her go, saw herself 7 years ago, same determination, same fear, same refusal to accept anything less than earning her place. The cycle continued, one generation training the next, each slightly better than the last, each carrying forward the lessons of those who'd fought to make the path exist. Kate touched the trident tattoo on her shoulder, through the fabric of her shirt, the symbol that meant everything. That represented every day of training, every night of missions, every moment where she'd had to be twice as good to be considered half as worthy. But she'd done it, earned every piece of it, and now she'd make sure the next generation earned theirs the same way. The sun climbed higher, training continued, candidates suffered and endured, instructors pushed and demanded. Kate walked back toward her office. Paperwork waited, training schedules, personnel evaluations, the administrative burden of leadership. But before she went inside, she stopped, looked back at the obstacle course, at the candidates pushing themselves beyond what they thought possible. This was why Dalton had chosen her for Fort Carson, not just to remove one bad officer, but to remind everyone what the military was supposed to be, what leadership looked like when done right. She'd carry that forward. For Dalton, for Avery Sullivan's sister, for every woman who'd tried to serve and been destroyed for it, for all the warriors who'd come after. Kate entered her office, closed the door, sat at her desk. On the wall hung a photo, Dalton pinning her trident 7 years ago. She'd been 27, exhausted, triumphant. He'd been 60, proud, seeing validation of everything he'd believed about her. Next to it, a newer photo, Dalton pinning her Lieutenant Commander Oak leaves 3 months ago. Both of them older, harder, but the pride in his eyes unchanged. Kate opened her laptop, started working through the day's requirements, training reports, candidate evaluations, administrative minutiae that kept the machine running. But her mind was elsewhere, on Colorado, on the courtroom where Vance had faced justice, on Avery building new systems, on Webb 3 weeks from earning his trident through honest effort, on all the small moments where people chose honor over convenience. That was the real victory, not destroying one man's career, but showing everyone watching that honor still mattered, that courage still counted, that standing up for what was right still meant something. The work continued. The mission never ended. But tonight, Kate would sleep knowing she'd done what Dalton had trained her to do. She'd been excellent. She'd been honorable. She'd made the path slightly easier for those who'd follow. That was enough. The sun set over Coronado, training ended for the day. Candidates stumbled to barracks, exhausted, alive, one day closer to earning what they wanted most. Kate finished her paperwork, locked her office, walked across base toward her quarters. Tomorrow she'd do it again. Train them, push them, demand they be better than they thought possible. Because that's what Dalton had done for her, and that's what she'd do for them. The legacy continued. One warrior at a time, one generation teaching the next. Kate touched her trident one more time, felt the weight of everything it represented. Then she walked into the darkness, ready for whatever came next. Because that's what SEALs did. They endured, they adapted, they overcame, and they made sure the next generation could do the same. The story ended not with triumph, but with continuation. The quiet knowledge that the fight for honor never finished. It just passed to new hands. New warriors carrying forward the same principles. Kate was ready. She'd always been ready. And she'd make sure they were ready too.